I distinctly remember having the conversation of them having a pattern of taking things away instead of giving more to people that are doing the things that they want to do.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 669th episode of the Pokemon Podcast. It's super effective. I'm your host, Steve. With me is Bobby.
Hello. I'm off the Pokemon sleep train. It's done.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
Over. It's done and over. I pulled a Chris. I'm still paying for it because I did the 6-month thing, so I gotta pay. I mean, I'm still paying through the next 3 months, but I've canceled it it's not getting renewed. It's done. It's over. Sorry.
We'll see you in 3 months when you change your mind.
When he's too tired and he has to start sleeping again.
That's true. This is going to be a Go heavy episode. So we have Chris coming back on the show, the Go expert.
What's up? Oh, don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. I don't want that. But hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
Yeah. So for the show today, I want to revisit Celestial Guardians, and then a little bit of Pokemon Sleep. Again, if we skip Pokemon Sleep, the 20 people who still play, the 49 people on my friends list, because I'm removing Bobby, that still play, need their Pokemon Sleep news. And then we have some pretty big, gigantic Pokemon Go news. It has nothing to do with, well, it actually does have to do with Gigantamax.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
And then we have some more general thoughts. So that's today's episode. Let's just start off with Celestial Guardians, the TCG. I think between Celestial Guardians and whether few or several or couple, those were the hot topics in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris, are you still playing TCG Pocket? Did you fall off that?
No, I've actually been playing it more the past couple of weeks. And I really like this set. I think the card art is fantastic. I think what it was is I had a few lucky hits to begin with, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this game can feel great to play. That full art Incineroar EX just got me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's really good.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Are you a wrestling fan? Is that?
No, but I do recognize the people's elbow when I see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do. And I have watched a little bit of WWE. I've always enjoyed it. I've just never gone out of my way to continue to watch it. It's always been a circumstantial thing,
Got it.
Good appreciation of it, though. It's good stuff. Very cool theater,
Yeah. Yeah. There is a Wonder Pick event happening right now. From May 9th to May 19th, the 7th Wonder Pick event, and then it adds a new pair of promo cards that is a Cosmog and Lycanroc. This event is themed around those two Pokemon. And there's the little, what are they called? The event shop tickets you can get. So you can get, there's like a Lily icon now, a Solgaleo coin, Galileo, Solgaleo, because it rhymes with Galileo. Solgaleo, we got there. There's like sleeves, the backdrops, the same stuff. If you like Lily, there's a Lily icon now, and if you like a giant fire cat that's not actually fire type, that's there too.
So true.
Yeah, this is these events are fine. These Wonder Pick events, I don't know. I tend to almost skip by them every time, and then right near the end, it's like, oh, I need to get the promo cards, or it's one of those ones that I feel like is kind of gets forgotten. I know you can just go into Wonder Pick and it's there, but I feel like those rare Chansey picks are not. I mean, they're rare, I guess. So you just don't see them very often, and then. I don't know, I don't Wonder Pick a ton, and so then I sort of forget that oh, there's an event going on right now. I should go in to get my bonuses or things like that. It's cool. I mean, do either of you have you ever used any of the promo cards from a Wonder Pick event?
No, purely decorative in my album.
I think did Jigglypuff, the original Jigglypuff that came with Sing come from? I know there was a promo Jigglypuff that was much better than like the genetic Apex one, and it
No,
was
the
a promo.
Jigglypuff came from the booster packs.
Right. It came, but okay, yeah, right. So it wasn't from a Wonder Pick. It was from the like a solo event of some kind.
Yeah. Wonder Pick
okay.
was my first promo I missed. I can't even remember which one it was. It was before you could before you could purchase the Mewtwo promo.
Yes.
And
yes.
so I guess I'm waiting until trading of promos eventually happens, and I can get that one.
Yeah.
I definitely started off this game of like I want 2 of every card.
Yeah.
Like I want 2 of the promo Lapras, even though Lapras was like the worst EX they've ever done. And now I don't care. Like I'll just take the one. It'll fill the hole in the collection. I'm never going to use these promo cards anyways. What does it matter?
Mm-hmm. It's true. That's true.
Yeah. Now that you missed one, like you're free, right? I know I hear you guys talk about this on here all the time, but yeah, no, you're free to just enjoy the app as you please. You know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That being said, there is another event happening in in Pocket right now. That is the Rayquaza event, not the 6-month anniversary, but like they also have like the solo Rayquaza drop, and I believe that ends on May 12th.
If it does, I haven't done any of it.
Yeah, I've done one, I think.
So like the 6-month thing it goes until like May 28th. Like you can get that full art Rayquaza EX card until May 28th, but the specific Rayquaza drop event, I believe it goes until May 12th. So you might want to jump on that if you want the promo cards that are associated with that event.
Yeah, I got to carve out some time to do that. I've just been really ripping packs and just enjoying that. And I have not done a versus battle yet since Ranked came out. I have not done a single one because I'm afraid I'm going to love it because I love competitive ranked games.
I'm afraid I'm going to have too much fun.
But it's true, right? That's relatable. Come on now. Like,
yeah, it is.
That's true.
Yeah, no, it looks great. And then I see people that are grinding like those higher levels and they're just like, oh, I'm just kind of on autopilot. I mean, I know there's no auto battle, but at that point, you have a deck and you know if it's going to work or not within the first, couple of turns. And if it's not, like you're just kind of there for the ride at that point.
We also never did talk about the fact that we got confirmation that at the end of a season, you don't get the cumulative amount of packs that you've like collected throughout your ranking.
Yeah.
You do end up just getting. I mean, I know we were like kind of all came to the agreement that that's probably what it was at the end of the day, but.
Well, I
now
brought it up
confirmed.
and you and Nate instantly agreed with me, and I was like, oh, I wanted some pushback.
Well, I when we initially heard about it, I was like, of course you're going to get everything that you've earned throughout the
because in
ranking.
Unite you get everything, in VGC you get everything, even in TCG Live you get everything. The difference with TCG Live, though, is like you see what you're earning as you go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I remember hearing that conversation and agreeing with y'all the entire time and being very skeptical. But for me, I had a thought of like, it must be cumulative simply because it's not worth it at those top levels. Like that's crazy. What we were not thinking, great.
It's it's because of where the top level puts you that it seemed like it wasn't. And then you had people who were like, well, these are like once a month seasons, right? They're like monthly seasons and whatever. At the end of the day, it came out. It's not cumulative. If you end at whatever, you only get your whatever that rank specifically is. So
no, it's annoying because it's not annoying to be like wrong. It's annoying that people accepted it and they were like, what do you mean? This is okay. It's not okay. It is not okay to be top 5,000 in the world and not even get a 10 pull.
Yeah.
And for people to be like, no, it's okay. You get it once a month. Like, how dare this company making millions of dollars? It is the #1 mobile app. Be like, you don't even get a 10 pull for putting so much time. And people are like, it's okay. Like, they got to make money off their digital PNG somehow. Like,
it's like getting a medal for placing and then the medal is made out of plastic. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, even if it was cumulative, you weren't even getting like 50 packs for being top 5,000 in the world.
Yeah, I think I think they need to adjust that. I really think it should be more. I'm not saying it needs to be like whatever the cumulative amount would have been. I just think it just should be more that there should be more separation there. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, like it is possible to get to master rank with a 42 win percent, right? Like if you just keep grinding, you can get to master rank being under a 50% win ratio. And at that point, you're getting pretty much the same amount of packs. Well, you're getting what, like 900 or not 990 hour, whatever equals like 9 booster packs.
It's like 100 and something, 100 or something like that. 120 would be a 10 pull, right? So it's like 110 or something, or 100.
So to make it to master rank, sure, you could argue that like, well, if you grind enough, you'll get 9 booster packs. But then it's like, okay, so why would you grind a top 5,000? I mean, you get the emblem, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean that does do a lot for people, like emblems and being able to show off. That is, it's a big thing for people. So yeah. There is that, but.
Yeah, but like my analogy at the time was like when you win, a regionals or something, they're giving you what 72 booster packs. There's like here's 2 big booster boxes.
Yeah.
Those actually cost money. The things in Pocket do not. I want to stress the things in Pocket do not cost money. They are just PNGs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no shipping them. There's no packing them. There's no printing press.
We're not going to have issues getting the next set due to tariffs or anything like that. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing I did want to revisit, which was the shiny cards in Celestial Garden. That's what I want to revisit.
Okay.
Because there were Pocket people defending this. I think you guys are all defending the wrong things. Like defending the amount of packs you get for the ranked and defending. If I wanted to pull generic Apex, I would pull generic Apex. I don't need a shiny Jigglypuff from Celestial Guardians that I'm not going to use.
So let's back up a little bit to explain what you're talking about. The shinies in Celestial Guardians are shiny versions of the cards from Genetic Apex. They aren't shiny versions of like newer cards. So the Jigglypuff you pull that's a shiny Jigglypuff from Celestial Guardians is effectively the same card as the Jigglypuff from Genetic Apex. It's got the same moves and everything as that card. So
there are 28 shiny cards in Celestial Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
That's twice as many that were in Shining Revelry,
which is wild. Twice as many as that were in the shiny set.
And almost all of them are generic Apex. There's a couple that are not. Like there's I think an Execute from Mythical Island that is technically shiny, but almost all of them are from Apex.
Yeah. And to be fair, even in the physical TCG, the shiny Pokemon are never a new they're never new. They're always based off of like a regular card, but usually they're based off of a regular card from that set or like they're not usually based off of like regular cards from many sets ago.
Usually, unless the Shining Volcanion is the one that comes to mind, but yeah, usually they are based off something.
Yeah.
Here's my problem with it, and I guess we didn't explain this enough. So the first problem is the God Pack. And this was what people were defending of like, you're not getting that many God Packs. True. A God Pack is like what, 1 in 2,000 chance in a booster pack, I think.
I've never gotten one. I can't tell you. My odds are zilch.
So imagine you getting your first God Pack, Chris.
Yeah.
You open it up, and
Sweating.
it's like 3 shiny Ghastlies from generic Apex. Like I understand that people are not getting God Packs left and right.
Okay, look. So I think for the regular person, yes, but for any of us, that's just content for the social feed at that point in time. So I'm still thrilled. You know what I mean?
You're like, oh, this
Look
is
at
gonna
this.
do numbers on Twitter.
Yeah,
but
I
like,
don't know about that, but
but if you look at Twitter posts, or you look at like Instagram stories, or you look at whatever from Celestial Guardians, everyone's God Pack is littered with shiny Pokemon.
yeah.
And so there's two problems with this. Number one is that's a very disappointing God Pack. Number two, I don't remember what number two was.
Number one's a good reason though. That's worth two. Yep.
But like, I think one of the best God Packs you can get is from Shining Revelry, because those are all new cards. Plus, there's that gold Pokeball. And I think the gold I think the gold Pokeball is a great gold item, because it's something you're going to probably put in every deck, and it's a great chase, right? Like, you could be like, you could not want to chase Dialga because you're like, I just don't like steel decks.
Right.
Or with Celestial Guardians, I love fire decks, I love Incineroar, I'm only going to open up this pack because that's all I want. I want Incineroar. It's my favorite Pokemon. The Incineroar deck is good. That's what I want to chase. There's not a single shiny where I'm like, man, I wish I had, from Celestial Guardians, where I'm like, man, I wish I had that card. Because the second problem, now that I just thought of it, is the game has such crazy power creep.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there's shiny cards from generic Apex, almost all of them are bad because the power creep is here.
They're out of date, right?
So it's like, oh my gosh, I got a shiny Ghastly. Okay, first off, Gengar was never good. But Gengar has only gotten worse as time goes on. So that shiny
Gengar had its place for a moment. I remember people throwing up Gengar decks. Yeah.
Oh, we're not denying people tried to make Gengar work. So that's okay. Problem number one is you're getting ruined God Packs. I am terrified to get a God Pack on Celestial Guardians because I haven't gotten one yet, and I don't want like 3 shiny Ghastlys because there are so many shiny cards. There's a 33% that each card in your God Pack will be a shiny card and not a new card from Celestial Guardians.
Wow.
So a 33% chance for each one of your 5 cards. That's crazy. The second problem that we didn't talk about last week, why I think this is bad, is that if you get a single shiny... Okay, so here's people's defense. People's defense were like, the shiny cards aren't pulling away from your immersive. They're not pulling away from your 2-star. They're not pulling away... Which is true. Like, the shiny slot isn't taking away from the other thing. But this is what the shiny does. Once you get one shiny in your pack is no longer eligible for Wonder Pick. And so it ruined Wonder Pick. My Wonder Pick has been dog water since Celestial Guardians comes out, because even if somebody got like full art Incineroar and then one single shiny, that whole pack no longer shows up in Wonder Pick. You can't come to comments. Please like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. It helps the engagement. But you can't say that Wonder Pick isn't ruined. Like, this is intentional. They intentionally have, like, I think there's 2 parts to this. The first part is we're putting shinies in because we know people will spend more money to get shiny cards, and they don't care about battling. That is a complete subset of players, and I understand if you do not care about battling, you're probably thrilled of these shiny cards. I understand that you exist, and this argument is probably not for you. But for everyone else who's like trying to get new cards because they want to play the new set, or they don't just care about shinies in general, the DNA has purposely watered down the packs with these shinies. 1, to get money from people who are just going to wail for shinies, but 2, to make it harder for everyone else to get good Wonder Picks. Wonder Pick is ruined at this point, I think.
Yeah, I don't think people are getting that lucky that it's happening so frequently that it's, really truly having an impact. I mean, I don't Wonder Pick all that often. I try to remember to do it daily, but I don't really. But yeah, I usually just what I look for. I don't look for specific cards. I just look for, is there something in this Wonder Pick that I don't have? And that's pretty much it. So I guess maybe we're looking for different things, but also you can trade all these, right? I haven't done a trade yet, but
No, you can't trade
shiny
Celestial
Pokemon.
Guardians
Oh,
yet.
I was gonna make an
you-
argument that they're really good trade fodder if you get those shinies in those God packs. So it's helping out another.
You can't
feature
trade
while it's
shinies at
taken
all,
away.
right?
No, you can't trade shinies at all. So
Okay, well then there goes that whole thing.
yeah. No,
Never mind.
shinies are in the same category as the 2 stars and the 3 stars. So you can't.
Yeah.
I feel like they should open that up at some point to at least be able to trade the one. I don't even know what you would call that. It's like because it's got a different symbol. It's not a star. It's not a diamond. It's like a
Starburst.
it's like an asterisk kind of,
Yeah,
with like multicolored asterisk. But that is not tradable as well. And I feel like they should open it up to allow like the 1-star ones, the 1-star shinies, to be tradable, because that's kind of like trading the 1-star secret rares. Like I feel like it's on that same level. So it's weird that they kept that back and didn't put it in there.
What they should do is they should go the Pokemon Go route and then just have, if you're trading legendary Pokemon, it's much more expensive than if you're trading regular Pokemon with somebody else. And they should just make it so like, okay, well, either you go on a timer for trades, you can make another trade for like a week, or it costs a ton of those tokens. I understand that the economy with those tokens is a little bit busted, right? We just have piles of tokens, right?
Well, that economy, I mean, it's going away. They're not going to be doing the tokens.
Yeah,
but
at the end of the
so
year.
until then, they're just giving us, like, I have like 3,000 of those tokens because I don't trade often with people, but
That's why I didn't think that trading was that big of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
because you thought that we were, but I think they only gave us all those tokens because like we're only getting 1,000 monthly tokens, I think, because everybody complained about it. Like, I don't think they were planning to give people 1,000 tokens at the beginning of each month.
I think giving our whatever trade tokens was that they're called. I think giving trade tokens to players that are currently playing was the like long-term solution to that. Like, it doesn't feel like they've strayed too much from the original plan, which was, we're going to give you tokens to celebrate. We're going to give you tokens for doing the events. We're going to give you tokens for participating, because it's not a secret. The tokens are there to prevent people who have like 4 accounts and are ripping 8 packs a day instead of 2 packs a day to then trade with themselves. That's why they existed.
Yeah.
But that would require you to then play on all 4 accounts to do all the events, to then, like, it's fine. I just think the only point I'm trying to make is the overwhelming people that wanted to trade at the beginning wanted to trade so much, and now at this point I don't want to say they're caught up, but like, you eventually catch up to the point where you don't need to do 100 trades on day 1 and then be like, okay, well, now I'm all caught up for the next 30 days.
Sure.
And there's also another mechanic. I mean, there's pack points too to help you fill in the spots that you need to fill in. I mean, that's a much steeper hill to climb, but there is another way.
And there's Wonder Pick, which has been ruined.
Sure. Defanged. Yeah.
The last thing about Celestial Guardians is, even though the shiny cards don't take away from like a 2-star pull, it like doesn't replace. I understand that. We didn't mention that last week. Because of the card allocation in Celestial Guardians, technically 2-star cards are at a lesser pull rate because of how percentages are calculated in those booster packs.
Because how statistics work.
Yeah. So even though, like, if you got a shiny Ghastly, that didn't override your chance of getting a shiny Incineroar. But statistically, your chances, or not a shiny Incineroar, sorry, a full art Incineroar. But statistically, your chance of getting a 2-star Incineroar is lower.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also the fact that the 2 immersive cards are trainers that are 2 diamond trainers, doesn't help the case for just the packs in general. Because if Space Time Smackdown, Chris, if you were like, oh, I want a Palkia, You could get an immersive Palkia. You could get a 1-star Palkia. You get a 2-star Palkia. You could get the gold Palkia. You have 4 ways of getting Palkia.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all the same card, right? Like
they're all the same card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Where in this, there's only 3 ways to get Solgaleo or Lunala. There's not 4 ways. So those cover cards are technically more rare too because they're being replaced by a trainer, which is immersive.
Yeah.
So I said last week I like Celestial Guardians. I feel like it is the first like real set since generic Apex. But they really watered down this set. Like everything about this set is intentional to make you pull more. 100%.
Have you guys pulled any like really impressive shinies, at least to you, from this set that made you kind of forget this argument for a second? Because I pulled a Starmie and I was like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
But Starmie's not good anymore. The power creep is there.
Yet you know what? That card is beautiful. And that's okay. That's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I still really like this set a lot. I do agree, like, it is unfortunate that the shinies that are a part of the set are cards that are from Genetic Apex from a battling standpoint. I do like the look of the shiny cards, though. Overall, I think that they're really cool.
Yeah, I think they look great. I got no complaints with how they look.
Yeah, but it is unfortunate that they have gone back to like making it older cards. You know, like making it cards from the first set. I don't know. They could have just done stuff that was a little bit more up to date, especially because of the power creep.
Yeah,
because of how the power creep works. It's like they could have done shinies that were from Space Time Smackdown or from Triumphant Light or just a newer set, right? They could have done it with cards or a newer set, or they could have done shinies that are from Celestial Guardians that are cards in Celestial Guardians. But it was
intentional. This is definitely intentional to water down the packs. 100%.
Yeah, but the game is also a collection game, right? So people are like, a lot of people. No.
I understand.
Right?
I understand you put 24 shinies in because you've realized people will wail for those cards because they want all of them.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're a battler, and to be very clear, I'm specifically talking about people who want to keep up with the meta, people who want to pull the Incineroars or the Decidueyes or the what else is really good right now?
Yeah, what else is really good right
Isn't there a Soul Galeo deck that is really
Soul
good?
Galeo. Yeah. If you want to pull those, the set is watered down. And I think it can be frustrating as somebody who wants to get those not even a 10 pull from the ranked battle to be like, I'm not getting the cards I need because statistically you have less of a chance of getting Solgaleo than you did, Palkia or Celebi.
Sure.
And these cards are also not showing up in Wonder Picks because shinies are blocking the Wonder Picks. So if you're only opening these packs and you do not care about battling and you just want to collect pretty cards, you probably see nothing wrong with this set, except it is affecting your Wonder Pick to get the other cards you're missing. But if you are trying to keep up with the meta, it's just there's no denying they watered this down.
Yeah.
I feel like the only way that this isn't bad for the reasons that you're outlining here is if they go to a standard rotation thing like Magic does, where old sets fall off, and so you might still want to see some of those old cards. Reborn is a very rare shiny version of the same card, but it's still playable, but the original set it was from is not, for whatever the competitive event is. But again, with power creep, that the likelihood of that being an important thing is lower than it would otherwise be.
Yeah, I mean, they have made other cards viable with newer sets by like adding something else that then benefits that older card. Yeah. So it's possible that, to your point, like Genetic Apex at one point falls off rotation and then there's you can't play it anymore for ranked. And it's like, okay, well now there are some cards that will still work because they're from Celestial Guardians. Yeah. But either way, I don't know. I don't have too much of a problem with it personally, but again, I'm also not playing ranked, and I like shiny Pokemon, so it's cool pulling them. But and I guess my thing is like, would you rather they just didn't have 28 as many cards in the set, or like the fix there, because the fix, because if they just replace 28 cards with 28 other cards, then that doesn't really fix depending on what those cards are, it doesn't really fix the chances of pulling on the Incineroar or another card in that way. It changes the Wonder Pick.
Meta that we get to talk about him.
Wait, what?
I just love that we get to talk about Incineroar. I can only give my opinion of. I think the gold Pokeball is a really good chase card because every deck involves a gold Pokeball. It would be very hard for me to want to go back to Apex and try to pull for a gold Pikachu because I'm missing gold Pikachu, because gold Pikachu has been power crept. There's not any. I don't know if if there's a new card that could be introduced to make 120 HP hitting for 90 Pikachu to be relevant again. So I've just kind of accepted that I'm never going to get that gold Pikachu, and that's fine, and that's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the real TCG does I guess secret rares or whatever you want to call it in a good way, where I think of the gold shiny Rillaboom that they brought out. What was that? That was
Rebel Clash,
I
think.
And it wasn't meta relevant. But it also didn't. There also wasn't like 24 different shiny Rillabooms to pad out the end of the pack. Mm-hmm. So I think I would be like less annoyed if there wasn't so many shinies.
Sure.
And there was only like one or two to chase, because then I don't know. It just feels like a lot to be a lot, and and like, you know, Dialga was good for like a hot second. Like when Dialga came out, it was not good, and then it was okay, and then it was good with Arceus, and then very quickly it was not good. And that I think in itself shows like how quickly the meta changes. And I think that's a whole separate problem of in the normal TCG, when new cards come out, the meta kind of stabilizes for 3 months, at least in America. And now for Pocket, I think the problem is, again, I'm just specifically talking about people who play the game, because if you're just collecting, none of this matters. But I can't trade for Decidueye. Like I pulled an Incineroar. I used my pack points to buy another Incineroar. Now I can build an Incineroar deck. I only have one Decidueye. I can't play or test Decidueye, and I can't trade for Decidueye. So that goes back to my problem with trading. Like again, I was saying like I don't think trading's that big of a deal, but also just the time gate of trading is actually kind of a problem, because by the time Bobby could trade me a Decidueye, because I know Bobby's swimming in Rowlets and Decidueyes over there.
I wish.
By the time Bobby could trade me Decidueye, now there's a new set and there are new cards, and Decidueye probably won't even be meta anymore.
Right.
And to be fair, I don't even think Decidueye's that good anyways, but I'm just using that as an example. So you're like in this constant, well, I need to pull on the new set to get the new packs or to get the new cards to play. And now, like, when am I going to get a chance to go back to Shining Revelry to try to get that gold Pokeball?
That's true. And to your point, the trading very much feels like, for me, it's like, it's just cleanup, right? It's like, okay, I had each set that's come out, I've completed the not secret rare set, like just the normal set where it's the, what is that, 1 diamond through 4 diamond cards. I've completed each of the sets, but what's happened is like I've always been like 2 or 3 short of the complete set, and then the day the new set comes out, I'm able to trade for the couple of cards that I haven't gotten from the last set, right? But that's all that's doing is it's just cleaning up, finishing the set. It's never anything that's like, oh, I need this for my deck. I don't know that I've ever traded for like, hey, I need this for my deck. It's always just been like, hey, I need this to like complete the set.
I need this weird 1% Magmortar from like Shining Revelry that like I will never play or I will never use.
Exactly.
Just the one card I'm missing.
Exactly. So it's like, you know,
and I
when
think trading's
it comes
very
time
good for that.
you know, then that's fine, but that's kind of the only reason that I use that system. It's not because, to your point, you can't really use it for meta purposes because there's going to be a new meta. The day the next set drops, there's immediately going to, like, a lot of stuff from before is going to, like, kind of be washed out, or at least some of it. And then it's like, all right, well, I can't get the new stuff either. I have to pull for it. So, that is definitely a problem.
Okay, we need to take a break. But I think my whole point of this conversation was, I think Celestial Guardians is the start of watering down sets.
You think we're going to get 28 cards, or 28 shinies, or whatever the, like, relative amount is based on the size of a set going forward for every set?
Yeah, I think this was intentional to make Wonder Pick worse and to make it harder to get stuff. I think this was intentional. And this is even the first time they did it. They already made Wonder Pick slower.
Oh, revealing each card first. Yeah.
They've already, like, I don't know. I'm keeping my eye on you, DNA.
You're so suspicious. Oh my gosh. The next set will be very telling. You'll get some confirmation, or you might have to, refigure that position probably based on how the next set rolls out.
That's true. The next set will be small, though. The next set will definitely be a smaller set for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this was a surprise. This is, even in the physical TCG, they don't just do random, like, shinies like this in the middle of like a subset of shinies in the middle of a regular set. So this was, like, I think this took everybody by surprise.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we got some Pokemon Sleep, some Pokemon Go, some Metagross. We will be right back. And we are back from our break. Pokemon Go. Maybe DNA is watering down TCG Pocket and Niantic is flourishing Pokemon Go. It's a strange time to be alive. I'm excited Chris is here because we've talked about this topic a lot, and now this topic is kind of like a reality.
Yeah.
So this is off PokemonGoLive.com. Trainers, prepare to battle as you continue tackling your biggest challenges in Pokemon Go. With your battle team, local community, new opportunities to call for backup are coming. Updates to Pokemon Go's Shadow Raids and Max Battles, starting with the Crown Clash Takeover event on May 13th. Trainers can participate in Shadow Raids remotely with a remote raid pass. This change will remain in effect after the conclusion of the event. Shadow Raids will count towards the daily remote limit. Also starting May 13th, the daily remote raid limit will increase from 5 to 10, and the maximum may increase for special events. Just, we know when Rayquaza comes out, you're going to unlock it to 20.
50.
Or unlimited.
Unlimited.
Starting May 19th, before Gigantamax Machamp Max Battle Day, trainers will be able to join Max battles by using a remote raid pass and the usual number of Max particles. The ability to join Max raid battles remotely will remain in effect after the conclusion of the event. Trainers who participate in Max battles in person will get more Premier Balls and XP than before. Are they saying that they're getting more compared to what we were getting, or we're getting more compared to remote raiders?
My read. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
I think we're going to say the same thing. I think it's, like, just more than remote raiders.
I think it's more than remote raiders, but the way they phrased it definitely made it sound like it was going to be an increase. Because I think in the past, I think the verbiage has been you will receive decreased rewards if you are remoting in. And this time they did the opposite. So that's the only reason why it could be different. But I think the pattern is that you'll just earn less as a remote, and it'll stay the same probably for people in person.
You think so? You don't think they'll bump up what's in person, and then what is remote is, like, normal amount? Like, what in person is now will become what remote is, and then in person will become more?
Well, knowing Niantic, in person now we get, what, like 10 Premier Balls? They'll be like, oh, we're giving you 12.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes it makes the difference. Like, I guess
That's true.
but
That's true. Sometimes
Yeah.
having 2 extra Pokeballs it does matter.
I distinctly remember having the conversation of them having a pattern of taking things away instead of giving more to people that are doing the things that they want to do.
That is true. If we're talking patterns.
Yeah, so I would really like for it to be different, but my heart says I want it to be more. My brain is saying, no, it's not going to be.
And then they're saying the limit of max particles trainers can hold will increase from 1,000 to 1,500. This maximum may increase for special events. Remote raid limit will increase to 20 on Saturday, May 24th, which I think is Machamp.
Gigantamax Machamp, I believe.
Yeah.
And then there is a new remote raid bundle for $2.99 in the store. So a pretty short but big change to the blog post. And then we have an article from Eurogamer, but we'll get to that in a second. What are your thoughts, Chris? I'm sure you've already talked about it on your own podcast, but
Yeah. So my co-host had a really good take of and we were talking earlier, Bobby's got the same thought, is that the increase from 5 to 10 is negligible. It doesn't really make a huge difference. Feels almost performative, and that in any case where you would want to raid more than 5 times in any given day, the limit is usually increased because it's an event that was around raiding. I think the only other pocket that you can kind of poke into for people that might be interested in it is that, yeah, sure, when we get the 5-star raids, or we get, remember when we had the Hisui roll around and those were only 3 stars, but you had the increased limit. Sometimes, and especially if you're a rural trainer, if you're trying to get the featured Pokemon that's new in an event, that's not a legendary or anything like that, but also happens to be in 1-star raids, and you want to get good IVs, this is a vehicle to make that happen for yourself in an intentional way. But I don't think most people play like that. I think that's literally only a thought that happens for people like us that think about Pokemon all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And are trying to min-max our, experience in these ways. So it's weird. This feels more like it's about good faith signaling to the community that they're like, hey, you guys were asking for this, so here's a little bit of what you asked for back, right? Because the price isn't going down. The price is the same for the passes. This is literally just for the whales that want to do that. We're doing 5 a day and can now do 10 a day and not think anything of it. Because otherwise, us, normies that are not spending all of that amount of money, it doesn't really change the experience that much at all.
I will say the one thing that could be the reason that it's pushed from 5 to 10, other than just now we're just going to make more money, is that because they've now made it so you can do 3 different types of remote raids, right? So it was 5 per day, but you could only raid regular raids. But now you can raid shadow raids, you can raid Dynamax raids, Gigantamax raids when they are around, and regular raids. So there may be more reason to actually do more than 5 a day, because it's like, oh, I want to do this. Ooh, but I also want the shadow Pokemon that's out. Oh, I also want the Dynamax Pokemon that's out. Like, it gives you more chance at that variety than 5 per day would.
So yes, I agree with that too, except that I think there's only one small tweak to that, and I'm interested to see what the two of you think about this. When reading through that, they made a point of saying that if you use a remote raid pass for a shadow raid, it will count towards your limit for the day, but they did not say the same thing in the section about max battles, which leads me to believe that you can use a remote raid pass for a max battle and it won't affect that limit whatsoever. And I think that's because there's the trade-off of not only is it going to take a heap of max particles, but also a rather expensive pass. So I don't think the max battles will dilute it as much, but I think even if we're just talking shadow and regular, that's enough of an argument to give that stance some legs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they did test this, and we're going to talk about it, I guess, a little bit in this article, but they did technically test this in January with Ho-Oh, with Shadow Ho-Oh. That was remote raidable. And I'll say, I don't do shadow raids almost ever. There's a task for one of the researches in my thing that's like right now it's do 5 or win 5 shadow raids. It's like that's never gonna get completed. That's never. I mean, maybe now it is, but like I was just like I don't go and do shadow raids. I did a bunch of the Ho-Oh raids. I don't know why. I have 100 Ho-Oh in my storage. I have, the Apex Shadow Ho-Oh and a regular Shadow Ho-Oh, and it's because it could be shiny, I guess. I was like, sure, I'll do some of these. But it got me to do them because they were remote raidable. I don't have any other Shadow Poke legendaries from a raid other than Ho-Oh now because it was remote raidable. So I think it's definitely going to work for exactly what they want it to do, which is just get more people involved in these things. And that's, I don't know, great, I guess. I mean, I like options. I always like options, right? Like when they were in person only, or as they've been, it's like, that's fine. I get what they're trying to do. They want people to get out. They want people to like go and, join a raid and be in a part of the community and things like that. But I always like when there is options. And so this is just opening that up, and it's like you can do it or you can just leave it. You could still go do your shadow raids in person. Like, and now you might have a better chance at doing them in person because you'll probably have a remote raider that can come in and help as well, right? So
I will say this change, while I do agree to some degree that I still feel it is performative as a goodwill gesture, it does revive a very important thing that I was very upset about when they put the limit on in the first place, was that there were all of these online communities that were built around the feature, that were like people that would make raid teams and strategize and talk, and they were international and stuff. And then once these limits came and stuff like that, it really gutted a lot of those communities in a lot of ways, because the passes became so expensive, and then of course the limit, right? So a lot of those, it didn't become as accessible, right? But this, with max battles being remotable, you can, and max battles sometimes needing some actual strategy and thought, right? You can start to see, hopefully, communities doing the same thing but built around that, because they need to strategize and talk and plan and things, and they can be international now because it's remotable. I think that's cool. That is very, very cool. But it's hard to talk about this and not be a little cheeky, especially depending on what side of the fence you were on for the original discussion, about being like, oh yeah, so it wasn't that important, huh? You really didn't need to do it, huh?
I think they did need to do it
at the time.
Yes. Performative wise, I agree. There's probably a vocal minority that did more than 5 raids a day. And I definitely know a handful of people that were like, yeah, I used to do like 10 raids a day. And I was like, that's $70 a week. That's almost a Mario Kart World.
It wouldn't be every day.
Almost.
I think what it was, and like Kyle and I were like this, where we wouldn't do 10 raids every day, but like once every 5 days there would be a day where we did 10. You know what I mean? And then there are days you just wouldn't raid, right? And it gave you the ability to plan that and have the freedom to do that instead of checking in every day. Like, I'm trying to get my maximum amount of opportunities to get the shiny of the new legendary or whatever. I guess I'll do 3 of my 5 remote raid battles. But in other days, it'd be like, okay, who's going out? I can send me many invites. And they're like, I'm going to go walk around my city for 2 hours. I'll at you guys when I have a new raid. Like, that disappeared,
Yes.
Yep.
So there's two audiences, I guess. There was definitely an audience doing as many raids as they can. And I'm shy to say, but I'm going to say it. I would equate that to somebody at a casino pulling a slot machine lever. They were just like, I'll just do another $1. I'll just do another $1. I'll just do another $1 until they got a shiny. That's a real thing.
100%. It's the same pathway in your brain. Yeah.
And so I do. Those people did exist, and maybe you could argue that Niantic did the right thing and said you need to leave the casino.
They didn't do that for that reason. They said they did, but that's not why.
You sure?
Yeah.
And then the other thing they did, which I think people were more upset about, was increasing the price.
Yeah.
So when you say, okay, you can now do more raids a day, you still see the pushback of they're too expensive. And Niantic's reason for this was that the value in the store was not correct. For spending $1 to remote in, you were getting so much compared to spending $1 on a Poffin, right? If you only had $1, what's more valuable, Poffin or remote raid pass? Even compared to the regular raid pass,
Right.
you could do a raid pass that you have to walk up to for $1 and hope that somebody else is there, or you can just spend $1 from your couch. And so,
yeah, it's just another example though of like taking things away from somebody else because the other thing isn't where you want it to be that you're comparing it to. So, like instead of making Poffins better, they made raid passes more expensive
to balance it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I get that, but you can't do that every time, and that's been the case.
But going back to, I think they needed to do this. I think there is an argument whether you like Niantic or not, and I guess if you don't like Niantic, you're not going to agree with the argument. But I think there is an argument to say we need to pull this back. We need to get people to go back outside, to form communities, to participate in these events. And if I wake up and I'm like, well, I could go to Mall of America, or I don't know, Bobby's going out, Bobby, just send me some invites. It's fine. Like you get a lot of that mindset of people being like, yeah, people will just send me invites. I'll just spend. It's almost like the DoorDash mentality of like, well, if I go get my food, it's going to be $12 at Taco Bell. But if I DoorDash this Taco Bell, it's going to be $22. And okay, this one time I'll spend the extra $10 so I don't have to leave my bed. I'm guilty of this. But I really do think it is kind of like a DoorDash mentality, and I think I'm going to give Niantic credit here. I think that they did do a good job with Campfire. I think they did a good job with giving people a reason to go out. I think they did a really good job with the community ambassador program and having these ambassadors form communities and lead communities. I think they did a great job with that. And I don't know if they could have done that when everyone just wanted to DoorDash instead.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And I think some friction in that space was definitely necessary. But I still think there is a world where both could have existed. And the big argument at the time, like I was just talking about again before, is that why didn't they just increase the benefits of being in person if they wanted to encourage people to be in person more, instead of taking away an avenue of accessibility or a choice to play, right? That was the big crux for me. That's the thing. That's the hill I died on, right? But you cannot disagree though that there isn't more people out playing, right? There are. They did revive people, the groups in person, and whether those are comprised of new players or not, or if people just gave in, or whatever the case might be, or people just got over it, like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if it's the same people playing or not, because people are doing what they wanted them to do.
But you're saying that more people are out compared to when? 2020? Because like there were many other reasons we weren't outside in 2020 and 20. Like there was more reasons that things were happening then, right? So yeah, they revived it from when? 2019, 2018, 20.
No,
like,
it's the once we were able to get outside, in-person communities have steadily grown, while the player base has not matched that, right? So it's kind of the same amount of people playing more or less, but more people are doing in-person stuff. And the community ambassador thing, like Steve brought up, is super key for that. And they read the room correctly on that one, because people didn't care for Niantic during that period of time. Whether you agree with them or not, the optics were not great, and people were just kind of scapegoating them, either correctly or wrongly, to be like all of my vitriol is going towards this company, because people do this all the time. But if you put a community ambassador out there, and even though they're backed by Niantic, it's still somebody that's from your street that you know, that's a friend, and you want to hang out with them. And oh yeah, I do like Pokemon Go, even if I don't care for Niantic right now, right? And so they skirted their way around that, and that social swell took years to get where it is today. So they kind of transplanted the whole online community thing that I was describing earlier to now in person. And the game is finally catching up with its map too. Like there aren't nearly as many dead zones as there were before. There's more stops, right? And there's more brand recognition for people, right? And even if you don't play Go, gosh, I couldn't tell you how many times I've been out with people that people drive by like, you guys playing Pokemon Go? Like they know. They're not playing, but they know, right?
Yep.
So I guess it's a sense of normalcy that I'm trying to describe here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, Chris, you were in the meeting at the time. I was in the meeting with Niantic prior to them announcing this, and one of the things they said was in-person check-ins are at an all-time high, so that's why we feel comfortable increasing remote stuff. And going back to my point, I think the friction had to kind of exist. You kind of had to like turn off, you kind of had to like delete the DoorDash app and then like kind of live without it for a little bit before you realize that you don't need to. I think this DoorDash analogy is great. I'm really proud of it. I'm going to keep running with it. As somebody who relied on DoorDash a lot, I have only DoorDashed once in the last month, so I'm very proud of myself.
Nice work.
But it's nicer out, so I can like one wheel to like a restaurant and be like, it'll take longer, but like I'm on my one wheel and like.
Yeah, but once November rolls around, it's back.
It's back to DoorDash. But I think that's a good reason why remote raid passes should exist, right? For like, it's way too cold to go play, but there's a new raid, and I just want to do like one or two, like a perfect example.
Yeah, and also just simply like, you know, wheelchair access and that entire conversation around stuff like that. There's a million reasons why this was an accessibility issue.
Yeah,
but did it pay off? I think. As much as I hate to say it, I think
I think Niantic won. Yes.
Yeah.
I think whether you whether you hate it or not, I think they outlasted everyone. So like when the people are like, well, just decrease the price. In what global economy do you think prices are going to go down in any like?
Yeah, the cost of goods for those passes just keeps going up. So just be happy they're not increasing the price, guys.
Yeah, wait till they put tariffs on the remote raid limit.
That's right.
I don't know if I've said this on the podcast. I've definitely said this on my Twitch streams, especially when I'm playing Pokemon Go. And I don't know if I've said it in front of you too, but I think other content creators would get mad at me for saying this. But there was a point. There was a point in time where Niantic was all in on content creators, right? And they were heavily featured for like GoFest. They were heavily featured for events and everything. And COVID happened, right? And I don't know how long they were trying to plan community ambassador stuff, but there was a shift on the back end where Niantic didn't really care that much about content creators. And instead they went with community ambassadors. And I think what they realized was content creators themselves are selfish and only are concerned about their own needs. I will do a community meetup if I can make a video about it or I can get what I want. And that wasn't actually a strong community. Now there might be a content creator that's like, join my Discord, you could do remote raids with people and stuff. But like, again, if you think about that, they're benefiting from it directly. Where these community ambassadors are out there and they're doing it because they genuinely love the game and they want to build a community. And their incentive isn't, hopefully this video gets 40,000 views so I can pay my bills. And I think the shift that Niantic made from let's not focus on content creators to people who actually want to be a part of this worked. and I'm not, if you don't have a community ambassador in your area, you probably don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I'm able to just go to Mall of America and just to do any Gigantamax raid, any Shadow raid, any other raid is because the community ambassador there has drawn 200 plus people every time there's an event. So I can go there, not talk to anyone, get the raid done, and then leave. And I benefit from that. And I, as a content creator, I don't have time to organize that. I even have time to make YouTube thumbnails for my VOD channel. I ain't got time to try to organize 200 people on a Saturday to do my champ.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is a lot of work to be a community ambassador.
For sure.
It
Oh
is
my
a
gosh.
ton of work. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully Niantic is treating them well. I know the community ambassadors, they have like their own like Discord or something where they have direct contact with Niantic. I think they get a little bit of news early, like some of the content creators do. But I think Niantic made 100% the right call. I think they leaned heavily into content creators, and the content creators did what they needed to do. They had to pay their bills. We got to make videos. We got to do this. We got to move on to the next thing. And I think that shift really paid off for Niantic. With community ambassadors. And I don't know if they could have done that I don't know if Niantic could have done that if it was just $1 remote raid passes and people were still at home. I don't think they could have.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of that. The only part that I would push back on is that I think even if you're not a content creator, if you're building a community and you're inspired to do that and stuff, you are still getting something out of it at the end of the day. You are still like, I want to foster a community here because either A, I want to be the guy, or
Sure.
B, I mean, that's a very real thing. I'm not, and that's a fine reason to feel like, get a sense of fulfillment, right? And like, I feel good about myself and I know that I'm good at leading, so I should do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel bad about that.
Right. And secondly though too, like I wish I had people to play this game with, and I can't do these raids without having more people. Oh, I know, I'll invite people and I will continue to foster a good environment so that they feel the need to come back more and more. But it's not monetary, right? And that's the big difference. But I do think there is something in it for people that lead the small groups that are content creators.
Yeah, I think the desire for a third place is really important, especially in today's age. A third place being a place that is not your home and is not work. So most people, they're either at home or they're at work, and there's not a lot of third places left. You can't. It feels like you can't even go to like a Starbucks, even though you shouldn't be going to Starbucks because they union bust. But like you can't even go to a Starbucks and like sit down for like 2 or 3 hours, and somebody's gonna be in the comments like, I can sit on my Starbucks for 3 hours. But the point is,
it's not welcoming anymore. Yeah,
it's not as welcoming as it used to. The point being is like a YMCA or even a church or a community center or your bar that you go to every Wednesday night to play pool. These are third places. These are places that get you out of work, get you out of your home. And that for a lot of people is Pokemon Go.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be a third place on Discord with people to do raids. I would argue, I could see both arguments of like, that's not a third place, that is the third place. I would argue for a lot of people that's Twitch, where they can go on a Monday night and be like, these are like-minded people. This is disconnecting me from life. This is disconnecting me from work. This is relaxing. But for a lot of our listeners, or your listeners, Chris, that third place is a park to play Pokemon Go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to say that community ambassador would also be desperate for a third place, and somebody has to step up and create that.
Right. And thank goodness they do. First of all, I gotta say, because we actually had our podcast meetup in person during that first Gigantamax event with the starters, with the Kanto starters, and we were in Minneapolis. Shout out to your community ambassadors because they kick butt.
Yeah.
They're incredible out there. It's a real tight community. Yeah. So like I can sit here and poke and prod and poo poo a couple of things, but once you're immersed in something like that, like in a group of 200 people doing an event like that, you're like, I get it. I see why the sacrifice was worth it, even if I didn't like it to begin with, and maybe still don't for several reasons. But that it's such an immense net positive that you're right, probably wouldn't have happened if they hadn't, turned the faucet off for remote raids for at least a little while. But the question is this them turning it back on, or is this actually a good medium, right? And I think it's, it's fine.
I think it's a good medium because they're not reducing the price.
Yeah.
Like I honestly think they could have not even reduced the amount of remote raids to 5 initially, but increased to that price might have been enough. Maybe not exactly the same to do what ended up happening, but like that price increase is big, right? I mean, like if you aren't buying a 3-pack of remote raids, you're paying $2 for a remote raid.
Mm-hmm.
That's 10, 5 remote raids, that's $10. Like you're probably buying the pack, so whatever, a couple, $8 or something like that. That's a lot of money for what amounts to something that you like may end up just transferring at the end of the day. Like, it's, so I think that them not lowering the price, even with this increase in remote raid passes, I don't think that that's going to make a large change in what they're seeing out and about.
I think the change is just, I can finally do a max battle.
Yeah. Yeah. That is huge.
That is.
You were speaking of. Sorry, go ahead.
I have thoughts about remoting into max battles, but I think we should take a break.
Okay.
As somebody who's done a lot of max battles, I have a lot of thoughts on this. Let's take a break. We also have the Eurogamer thing we'll get to. So let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Pokemon Go. And we are back from our break. Okay, as the resident max raid expert here, I speaking of prices going up, you have to spend both particles and a remote raid pass to raid in. So my first question is, if you fail that raid, so I don't know if people know this because maybe they live in St. Cloud, Minnesota. If you do a max raid and you fail it, you get all your particles back. You don't lose out on any. I don't know if people know this or not, but when you do a raid, local or remote, and you lose it, and then the raid goes away, you just lose that pass. Whereas you get the particles back as soon as like when you do a raid, it unlocks that raid for 45 minutes. So you have 45 minutes to do the raid until the raid vanishes. But the particles you get back instantly.
Yeah. You mean for the duration of the raid? Because like if you throw a pass and it's got 22 minutes on, then you only have 22 minutes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But once that raid starts, that pass is locked to that raid. So how does this work if you're paying $2 to remote in and you're paying the particles and then you fail out?
That's a good question. Well, do you have a theory?
Unless there's a rework of how the raid system works, it sounds like you lose. It sounds like the pass would be active for the 45 minutes, right? So you fail the raid, but you would have. So two things have to happen. One, somebody didn't invite you with like 5 minutes left, because. If you're getting invited with 5 minutes left, you really only have one chance before that raid disappears.
Yep.
And two, if somebody invites you right at the start for the 45 minutes, and so at least your pass is valid for the 45 minutes, they have to invite you again. Or if you can click on their name in the friends list and go back in, you have to also assume that raid isn't completely full. Right? Because if it's full, how are you getting back in to get your $2 worth of value?
Right. Yeah.
So I think one of the things maybe Niantic should have been working on is maybe just having the raid pass is given back to you just like particles are giving back to you. That solves a long-term issue of losing the raid pass, and that solves this issue of losing your raid pass for Gigantamax, which is undoubtedly more difficult than a 5-star Suicune.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it would inspire people to, well, it would encourage people to raid more, because I think for some people, raiding culture is intimidating for a very casual player, because, you know, the passes are expensive, so they might be more willing to try raids and stuff if they knew if they failed that they were going to get their pass back.
Yeah, I don't know. I for again, going back to the argument of like make raids cheaper, this raid is close to $4, right?
Yeah, really expensive.
Wait, why is it close to $4?
Because a Gigantamax raid is it 1,000 or is it 800?
I thought it was 800.
800.
800.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 800 is $1, so $3. $2 for the remote raid, $1 for 800. I'm pretty sure it's I'm pretty sure it's 800.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
it's whatever a max particle pack is. I think that's a
But you're picking
value.
up the particles as you go anyway. I mean, like,
You could okay, sure.
Yeah, and you get a daily regular raid pass too, but you know, not remote, but
a daily
But
regular.
if you're remoting
Yeah.
in, you're assuming the person's remoting in just to one a day, and then they're leaving to get particles. You're putting a lot of faith in the person not leaving their house.
yeah, the person that is doing remote max battles and stuff like that is absolutely buying max particle packs too, because otherwise, why would they have remoted when they could have just left and gone somewhere else if they were going to leave anyway for more particles?
No way. Like if I'm doing a
150.
Gigantamax,
It's 150 for 800, so it's $3.50 for
Yeah, okay.
a remote raid.
if I'm doing a Gigantamax raid, I'm just doing the one to get the
Yeah.
Gigantamax Pokemon, and I'm out. I'm not going.
Well,
anymore.
you're assuming you're catching it, Bobby.
Okay, sure.
That's true.
I've never had an issue catching a Gigantamax Pokemon in the past, but I guess I also didn't do Snorlax, so who knows?
but also the person remoting in is getting less Pokeballs.
But people also shiny hunt these things too, so there are reasons to redo them. It's not just
No.
done.
Yeah, I think we're being too situational here. I'm just the point being was this is the most expensive raid, $3.50.
Yes.
Sure.
And of course it could be cheaper if you already had the particles, totally. But you ideally you could only remote one from your house before you either have to leave to get more particles, unless for some reason you're sitting on like 7 power spots and you can just swipe those up. But you either have to buy more particles or you have to leave. And whatever, that's
Yes.
fine. I think cost aside, I think it's cool that somebody could be like, I broke my leg, I'm in a wheelchair, I'm sick, I don't want to get other people sick, I'm cat sitting, my car's in the workshop. Like, there's tons of reasons why you would be like, I'm just gonna remote raid into Snorlax,
Mm-hmm.
just get my one and done. I'll see you guys next week in person. That's
Yeah.
great. And I think that's what a lot of people, you know, specifically maybe if you live in St. Cloud, Minnesota, you're like, there's no one here. We don't have an ambassador. All we have is a KFC. There's, they can finally get like their Machamp. Although this is the weird part about it is if you haven't been doing Gigantamax because there's no one to do Gigantamax, and now you're remoting into Gigantamax, you're already out of the loop cycle. You're already at the disadvantage, right? When I go into a Gigantamax raid, I got a maxed out Blissey, I got Gigantamax Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, I have a Gigantamax Lapras, I have a Dynamax Excadrill, I have tools to use.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is if Machamp is going to be my first remotable Gigantamax raid, I'm worried. What are those people bringing if this is their first time doing it. They haven't experienced that with. And I think that might be a pretty poor experience for those players. Because they're not in person to talk to.
Yeah, but like how many times have you told me that, the people that you're raiding with brought a Sobble or a Grookey to the raid in person, and they're not talking to anybody, but like you still won.
Yeah.
So like then they get their first Gigantamax Pokemon after using their Sobble or their Grookey. Like,
I think Gigantamax raids are easier than like legendary Dynamax raids.
Just because you can have 40 versus like the 4.
Right. Your group of 4 can fail, but all it takes is like 2 groups of 4 that really know what they're doing to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, I think as far as the portion about having like a good path to acquisition quickly, especially if you are just jumping into the future now, they've been pretty good about having like an onboarding thing. Like for each of the legendary beasts, there's been a week-long research that gives you like a proper counter, right, to like it's Grookey this week for Suicune for this weekend, right?
Yeah.
And even with the Machamp Gigantamax event, they're having it on May 19th through May 25th, and May 25th is the raid day. That's a timed research that gives you a Dynamax Beldum. So like I think the signals are there from them, and whether people are doing that or not is kind of a hit or miss, but it's not as insulated as you might think looking in from the outside. I think they're doing a much better job about it now, and it is rather simple. I think if we look at who they have in max battles and stuff, generally speaking, there is a good counter available in max battles leading up to an event, because they do a good job of rotating them.
Yeah, it's just assuming people are doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I say that because even though somebody might the Mall of America thing that Bobby brought up, where even for what was the last one, Entei, where people were bringing things like pure that were just like weak to fire. Like, I'm sorry, your Gorilla Boom is not a great choice here for Entei. Yeah. Like, this is just basic type advantage.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at least in person, and maybe I'm wrong on this, you can do multiple, and you can see what you're doing wrong, and you can learn, or ideally somebody is there to talk to. And if you lose, you can just jump in and do it again pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas if you're emoting in, you might not know what you're doing wrong. You might not know if you can actually remote in again.
Sure.
Like getting 40 people together is not ideally fast. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
So how old is Dynamax and Gigantamax? It came out in what, like November or September?
Yeah. September of last year.
So over 6 months, and there are still people that just do not know how this mechanic works. They're just treating it like regular raids, and it's just not that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to teach those people. I don't think that's Niantic's fault though. Fully. I'm sure you could make a reasonable case to blame Niantic. But we see this in Scarlet and Violet with 7-star raids. Like I've gotten a bunch of comments being like, "Hey, my skill swap on Slowbro isn't working." Well, yeah, that's because Metagross has a shield up. And that's how it's always, when the shield is up on a raid boss, you can never use a status type move. You can't Thunderwave it, you can't skill swap it, you can't charm it, you can't Will-O-Wisp it. That's how it's been for 2.5 years. So when you say my skill swap doesn't work on Metagross, that's how it's always been.
But there are so many factors to that. Like,
yeah,
they could be first time players. They could be someone that doesn't pay attention to that stuff because like whoever they're battling with just pulls the weight and wins. They could be, it's like, if you see people going back to like the Dynamax raids, bringing in like the wrong Pokemon to the thing or not knowing how to play the correct way, I would almost guarantee you're not seeing the same person week after week doing that. They may be doing that. I'm not saying they're not, but like when you're seeing that new Grookey come in against Entei, probably not the same person that you saw last week doing something similar. Like there are so many people playing these games that like, but there are so many people that are only playing these games at the very few times that like it works for what they're doing, right? Like
Right.
they're in the mall and, oh, there happens to be this thing this weekend. Oh, there happens to be a bunch of people here. I'm going to jump in. I never play the game typically, or I never raid typically or whatever,
Yeah.
but I'm going to jump in, right?
I wasn't planning to be here for this.
Or,
right?
hey, Metagross is coming to Scarlet and Violet this weekend. I don't touch Scarlet and Violet very often, but like, hey, I just noticed that Metagross is here. Let me go play this thing. Oh, I don't know how any of it works because I don't typically play the game. I'm just jumping in and doing this thing, right? There's so many people that are like that as well. I probably a lot more people like that than there are people who are playing these games week after week after week. Like, and so how do you teach them, right? It's a lot of like, especially how do you teach somebody who doesn't really care, right?
Mhm.
Like, how do you teach someone
Like-
who
like
just wants
when-
this thing and is going to leave and doesn't care about actually learning how to do it? Like, not because they don't care about learning, but they don't care because there are so many other things that they're dealing with and they just want to go do this raid real quick and then be on their way. And they're not like wanting to be like, well, how do I do this for all the ones I want to do going forward? Because it's like they might not care about all the ones going forward. They just care about this moment in time that they have right now doing this thing right this moment. And then the moment that they get that thing, they're out and they're caring about the next thing that they're dealing with, right?
Their problem is that they're treating this like it's just a game, Bobby, and it's not.
Those jerks.
It's not. They gotta take it more
Well,
seriously. Otherwise,
okay.
get out of my raid group.
So going back to like 7-star raids, I'm sure there are people who jump into a raid,
Mhm.
they do their thing, and they go, man, I won. I did a great job. But they didn't realize or pay attention to the other Pokemon, maybe using Chilling Water or setting up a Reflect or using Heal Cheer. And it's like, well, the reason you won was not because you just went in and you spammed Torch Song over and over
Mhm.
again. Helpful, yes, because you were doing damage and you got to do damage to win the raid, right? But like you weren't paying attention to these other variables. And this and Scarlet and Violet has been out for 3 years, and there are still people who don't know all the mechanics and stuff.
Mhm.
And so when I think about like Pokemon Go and Gigantamax and Dynamax raids, there are probably people with their Grookies or their Raboots joining, going like, "Oh, that was easy, I won," not knowing that another person is sucking up all the damage so they don't die using Max Guard.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
that's like fine, because they probably don't care, right? They just want to jump in, they want to do it, they want to move in with life, they don't want to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that kind of falls apart when you have to spend $3.50,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get booted back out, and then the person who's in person trying to invite you, that either fills up again, or the timer ran out, or they just don't invite you again. They just go, oh well, I'll just I didn't I didn't intentionally invite you. I just saw that you were online, and now more people are online, so I just picked the top 5 instead of you. And now, like, are you? There's like a are you out money, but also there's like no communication.
Yeah.
People will learn quickly whether or not they want to continue that route, right?
I don't
lose
think
their
they'll learn.
350.
I think they'll just be like, I'm done. I'm not going to do it
No,
anymore.
they won't learn how to. No, I'm not saying they're going to learn how to do the raid. They're going to learn quickly whether or not this is for them. Like, if they're not willing to learn how to do it correctly, or so that they can, win, they won't do it. They won't pay $350 to do it, right? They will continue not doing the thing they haven't been doing already.
Yeah.
Right? Or it will work for them and they'll be like, cool, that worked out. Or they will learn how to do it, or they know how to do it. But if they don't know how to do it and they don't want to learn how to do it, and then they have this experience where they spent, $350 and they didn't get the thing that they wanted, then they just won't do it again. They probably won't continue to spend $350 after $350 after $350 after $350 after $350 and lose $30 or $40 and then just yell into the sky at how much they hate this feature they'll probably only lose after 1 or 2 times and be like, this isn't for me, I'm out. And, good or bad, that's what's going to happen to the people doing the remote max raids.
People might also just blame the Pokemon, be like, oh, this was very hard because it was Machamp, and so I'll try again on a different Pokemon, right? And then the rest of the game design is telling them differently. The rest of the game design, like for raids, a lot of people don't know what they're doing in raids and are successful raiders because it doesn't require a lot out of them, right? And so that attitude and behavior is fostered in other portions of the game. And then they're just like, hey, this resembles raiding, so it must be a similar level of experience and therefore investment. Right, exactly. And it's not. And I think you're right, Bobby, to a degree. People are going to learn quickly, right? Or either the game or about themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to be tempted, and that's the whole point. And then if you take a step back, if that's happening and people are truly doing one and done, and then by done I mean done with the feature and not coming back, that's bad game design for Pokemon Go, because they want to encourage people to learn how it works and do it, because especially with the remote stuff, that's a big revenue stream.
I don't fully agree, because like I think that probably happens with remote raids currently. We don't see it because we've been doing raids for 8 years. But like I am sure there are newer players who are not leveled high enough, who go into raids, who remote raid into things, either solo or with like one other person that they can't beat, and then they lose their pass, and then they maybe do it or they don't do it again. We don't hear about those. We're not talking about those people typically, or we don't know those people exist because of the groups that we're in or where we are. But I guarantee there are people who stepped up to raid within the last 8 years and then didn't do it again, or gave it a chance way later down the line, that like in that remote raid time frame, I guess. Like
I agree with you,
I'm
Bobby.
sure that happens.
I don't even know. The Metagross thing is funny, because one thing I thought about too is with the main series game is I just assume, and this is wrong for me to assume, I assume that because Pokemon is 30 years old, and because Gen 4 is 17 years old, I think, or 18 years old, I just assume people know that there's a physical and special split. And so if I'm using Ho-Oh, Sacred Fire is physical, and if I'm using Flamethrower, it's special. And so if Metagross Iron defenses twice, my Flamethrower is going to do more damage than my Sacred Fire, right? So in Pokemon Go, I think all three of us, and I think a lot of people listening, probably just assume that people know, hey, if there's only 3 people in this Suicune raid, maybe we should back out, and we will not permanently lose our raid pass. And I don't even know if people know that, where they think like, well, I'm already in the lobby, so the raid pass is here, so I might as well just do it. And it's like, no, you could leave the lobby and get your raid pass back and try to like re-queue back up. I think the majority of players probably know this, right? And that's not what we're talking about. If you're listening to a Pokemon podcast, if you're on a Pokemon Discord, if you're reading the Sylph Road, if you're following 30 Pokemon accounts on Twitter, this is probably like very basic knowledge that you know. But I think what Bobby hit on and what I was hitting on are these people that they just want a Gigantamax Machamp. Somebody invited them off their friends list. They have no clue how this raid system works. They don't care to learn how this raid system works. They don't want to go watch a YouTube video on how to do it. They just want to fill the hole in their collection, and they don't know. And so, yeah, I agree. I think there are probably hundreds of people a day just losing raid passes because they just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's fair. That's right.
The game can only do so much, right? Like people have to be accountable for some portion of what they're doing.
Right. You can't blame Niantic like fully. Like you can't have to.
Yeah.
Like you have to read the press release, or you have to like power up your Pokemon, or you have to like go out and maybe catch respectable counters, right? Like you can't put 100% blame on the developer and just be like, how dare them just not hand me the Gigantamax Machamp? How dare them make me do a little bit of work in this video game?
It's not about the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not about it's their fault that they didn't give me the tools to succeed, that I had to go find the tools to succeed myself. It's that when you fail, is it clear to you why you failed? And I think in regular raids, it's very clear, oh, we didn't have enough damage. He's going to hit me with a big attack every once in a while, and then little attacks, and then very clearly over the course of this time, we weren't going to make it in time, right? And we won't because we don't have stronger Pokemon, right? So I'll stop for now.
Again,
But
that's something that we learned over time. I don't know that you would get all that when you join a raid if you don't know how the mechanics of the game work. Even in a regular raid. Like, if you don't know the full mechanics of the fast move versus the charge move and how all those things work in time with each other, and what leveling really means, and what a level 10 versus a level 50 is, or what CP is, if you don't know those things fully in some capacity, I don't know. Yes, you can see the bar to make the damage go all the way down didn't go all the way down. Yes, the timer ran out, right? Like those very basic things. But you can also see that with a Dynamax or Gigantamax Pokemon. You can't see the timer. It's different, right? In that way.
Yeah.
But you can see that the damage has not been done. And like, obviously, like there are different ways to go about like on how that works with the Dynamax and Gigantamax. But still, there are intricacies even in the regular raids that if we weren't having done them for 8 years, or if we came into this game new and didn't have all that knowledge, it might not be as flat out in front of us as we think it is, just because we've played the game every day for 8 years.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that Gigantamax is much more complicated and therefore less easy to intuitively figure out, you know. So like the barrier to entry is a little bit more complicated, because with a regular raid, yes, for sure, like it is very simple that the health bar goes down, and if it didn't go down all the way, we fail in both scenarios. But with Gigantamax, there's a team nuance that is just not there. In regular raids, the team nuance in regular raids is, do we have enough bodies to take this down? Not, do we have a healer? How are we managing our shields and things like that? And I feel like that stuff could use a little bit more explanation in game. Like we figured it out, the community's figured it out.
Yes,
right?
Agreed. I do agree with that point. I've definitely said this before. Like, I think Niantic hasn't done enough to show people the differences between raids and Dynamax and Gigantamax raids, and to show that there's actually like new variables to it, because when they released Dynamax, they were all easy enough to solo, and so like you never were like using those other moves. You were never using the Max Spirit and Max Guard. You were just using those attacks. So even to people who did have raided for 8 years, right, when Dynamax came out, it felt very similar. And then what was it? I think it was when Gigantamax, when like they did the starters, right? Everyone was shocked because they were like, wait, this doesn't work how we thought. And
we get it. Oh yeah.
And then it was like, oh, there's all these other ways to do it. Yeah. But they didn't lead into that in any way. They were just like, here's 1-star max raids, and then here's Gigantamax raids. Okay, figure it out.
Yeah, and I think the point I was saying about it being bad game design and not in Pokemon GO's best interest in some degree is that the only point in which people are going to be one and done probably is if they don't understand why they failed, if it's not clear to them, you know. And that comes from a bunch of different places of like, I understand my Pokemon was weak, but I still don't understand what I could have done differently other than making my Pokemon strong, which still might not do it in order to win here, right?
Mm-hmm. I think the similarities between 7-star raids in Scarlet and Violet and Gigantamax or Dynamax raids are so parallel. Is that a good, or the like? Mm-hmm. Everyone in a 7-star raid just wants to attack.
Yeah.
Everyone in a Gigantamax raid just wants to attack. And to be fair, both games do the same thing. When you're playing through Scarlet and Violet, it's very rare that you are using Reflect or Light Screen or Focus Energy. You are just hitting the move throughout the story to do the damage to get you to the end.
Yep.
I don't know if anyone's going through a story playthrough using Trick Room. I don't.
I've never used Trick Room in the entirety of playing Pokemon except in competitive, but like I've never once played Trick Room in like story mode.
I don't know if anyone's like using like Defense Curl as they're going through Mount Moon or whatever, right? and that's the same in Pogo with 8 years of your only options is to attack or to dodge, and the dodge didn't really work that well, so you just attacked, right? And enough people, you got it done. And I think the real win scenario in both 7-star raids in Sword and Shield and D-Max raids or G-Max raids in Pokemon Go is somebody who is healing, right? Somebody who is being support and who is setting the light screens or the reflects or the max guards and who's doing the max heal, I don't know what it's called, spirit, and who's hitting heal cheer. And sure, you can blame Niantic, sure, you can blame Game Freak, but I do think there has to be just a little bit amount of work from the player to be like, why did we win that? Or what did happen there? Or it just doesn't seem like in both situations, because I don't want to specifically pick on Pokemon Go players. I think in both situations, though, the Pokemon Go players and Scarlet and Violet players are just so hyper focused on themselves, and they're just not looking to what their team is doing.
Yeah.
And maybe because I've played so many team-based games like Final Fantasy 14 or Destiny or SOCOM or like whatever, right? It's equally important to know what your team is doing. Does my team need help? What am I doing here? And I think that overall is a new thing for Pokemon players. And I think the Pokemon players that get it probably have played other games like Destiny.
Yeah.
And there is a big portion of Pokemon players that haven't experienced that kind of group co-op mechanics. And to be fair, I think group co-op mechanics have only really got popular within the last maybe decade.
Online
where,
play, yeah.
Where like, you know, this wouldn't have ever been a thing in like Ruby and Sapphire.
Sure. Right.
So right. I think there is just a responsibility from the player to go, these mechanics are a little bit more complicated and you have to do a little effort in participating. But I also think Niantic and Game Freak could do more to help explain that too. But
I think the other thing that you kind of have that's kind of an issue and can kind of fall outside of really anyone's or like the player's fault is that with these raids, whether they're the 7-star raids in Scarlet and Violet or the D-Max, G-Max raids in Go, communication helps so much. If you can communicate with your team and you can figure out what people are going to do, you can prepare that and understand what people are going to do. Even if you understand how the mechanics work, you have 3 other teammates, and if you don't fully understand what their position or what their role in it is, it obviously is going to make it very hard. And if you are in a Dynamax or Gigantamax raid and Go, and you're not speaking with other people, or you're going to start remoting in, and how are you going to communicate with other people?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You're not going to have a way to do that. In Scarlet and Violet, if you're not on your Twitch streams, when you do the Scarlet and Violet raids, you are communicating with the people you're about to start raiding with on what each person should be doing, or like who's going to do what.
Yeah,
I
usually tell them what they need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm going to
happening,
reflect. You're
right?
going to, you're going to, yeah, no, totally. And when Chris and I did G-Max raids in person, there was communication.
There was.
I remember we failed in the Macy's, and
nice. We failed in the Macy's.
We did. We had to shore up and like lock in, and
there was talks of like people saying they're going to change the strategy. I think for me, and we're going too long on this, so I'll make one more point, and then we'll do the quote, and then we'll move on to the premium part of the podcast. But I think to me, I just default bring healer. I'll default bring a Lapras or a Blissey or whatever, because I know the majority of people want to attack. And that is not unique to Pokemon Go. If you play Final Fantasy 14 and you are DPS, you are in a queue forever. If you are playing Final Fantasy 14 and you are either a tank or you are a healer, you are instantly queued. Because those roles have more responsibility, and some people just like big numbers. They just want to do damage. That's just fun to them. That is the most common role. So when I join a D-Max raid and I have Blissey or Lapras, I I'm very confident the other 3 people are just going to hit the smash the attack button. But if there's no communication and I join with Blissey and everyone else has the same ideal and they join with Blissey, we've auto lost because we don't have 4 Blissies are not going to take down a Suicune. There's just not enough damage there.
So you have roles that you actually essentially sign up for in Final Fantasy.
Sorry, I think really bright. Yes,
most of those are like that. Yeah.
So that would be cool in Go if they just had slots that were like, this is the healer slot, this is the attacker slot, and that would even get people to be like, oh, what's a healer slot? And then that then in itself gets them to potentially learn.
Scarlet and Violet should have that too. Scarlet and Violet should have like 1 healer, 2 DPS, and like almost like 1 tank. I agree. I think Pokemon Go should have that because when you're doing a 4-person raid in Final Fantasy, it is 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS, and the tank is the one who is supposed to lead when a lot of people don't like tank because you're supposed to like know where to go. And if it's your first time tanking a dungeon, you're like, I don't really know where to go. And like the Final Fantasy community is really great. So that's like not a huge issue, but that was always a problem with Destiny raids. Destiny raids were 6 people and they weren't assigned roles in Destiny raids, but like, there would be like I would have to lead a lot of Destiny raids because other people they just didn't want the responsibility to be the leader. They were like, well, I know how to do it. I know that I like the left side of the map. I like doing this part of the raid boss. I don't know how to do the other part of the raid boss. And so like you have to like move people around. In person, pretty easy to move people around. When one person's remoting in from Appleton, Wisconsin, the other person remoting in from St. Cloud, Minnesota, and then somebody's remoting in from, Fukuoka, Japan, a little harder to be like, who's doing what?
Yeah.
And not to mention the management of those groups when you're in there already is rather poor. So that's only going to become a more of a nightmare with remote raids too. Like you have to be cognizant of what order you join the Dynamax raid or the Gigantamax raid in order to get those groups the way you want them to be, which is a big hurdle.
True. Very true.
Okay, last thing here before we wrap up the show and move on to the bonus part. There was a quote. Eurogamer had a interview with Niantic. So they asked pretty much like, did you increase the remote raid pass because of Scopley? Is pretty much what it came down to.
Yeah.
So the quote is, quote, these changes take a long time to get in the game. Niantic says to me as we speak on a video call, to distance today's announcement from the game's recent sale to Scopley. Quote, these things we take a measured approach to, and it's entirely a Pokemon Go decision. These are things we've looked at for years. We've looked at data. We've looked at community feedback. It's entirely the leadership here internally, and definitely 100% of our decisions to make these changes. This interview is like pretty long, and we can probably talk about more of it later. But that was probably the biggest point of negative feedback I saw, which is like weird negative feedback is like, oh, Niantic is only doing this because Scopley's now in charge. I want to be very clear. That sale has not gone through.
Right. That is not a finished sale. People need to remember that like that is not a completed sale. Now, it's getting closer and closer to May 20th, which is 60 days after they had to tell California that they were laying off a bunch of employees at Niantic. Right? They did that layoff warning, part of the WARN Act, on March 20th, which is 60 days before, you have to give them 60 days before the layoffs. So May 20th is coming, which has been my suspicion that it's potentially like that's around the time that things might finalize if they do, just because of like that time period. But it is not May 20th, and no announcement has been made that there is any acquisition finalized. So Niantic is very much still, or Pokemon Go is still very much under Niantic right now.
Yeah, the one thing not mentioned here, and it's never mentioned here, is like the Pokemon Company.
Right. Well, I think when they say like the Pokemon Go team, that always means like in collaboration with the Pokemon Company.
Yeah, with Big Brother Pikachu also in the room for sure.
That they've never ever said in any decision making that they had any like collaboration with the Pokemon Company in coming up with that decision, right? Like
Right.
they said it in the, we heard it in the interview with Trainer
We heard it
Tips
with Michael when
Right.
he talked to Trainer Tips.
You're right, but that was it. That was specifically about that. But in any of the like communication that comes out of decision making, they never talk about the Pokemon Company. Sorry, there's dogs barking in the background, right? I don't know if you can hear that, but they never talk about the Pokemon Company being a teammate in that,
Yeah, it's implied. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this before, and I watched Nick's whole video with Niantic with Michael and stuff, and Michael literally says I have to talk to the Pokemon Company every single day, and he literally says in that interview the Pokemon Company has to approve everything we do. He said both things in the interview.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to me that people like still don't get this. Like, I am confident that part of the reason why they limited remote raid passes was because of the Pokemon Company.
Sure.
I think it's, to me, it's very clear that the Pokemon Company wants you to play this game outside because it's different than the other Pokemon games you play inside.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Niantic has, I'm not sure. I know Niantic has freedom to make new features on their own, but they still have to go to Pokemon Company and prove why those features are worthwhile, and if they are okay with those going forward, right? Niantic just can't decide, hey, we're going to put Ogerpon in the game this weekend without the Pokemon Company saying, no, she's busy right now, and she's not coming to your game until we tell you she's going to come to your game.
Yeah.
And I think that there was influence to like, hey, we want people to go back outside. And I'm sure Pokemon themselves are invested in the long-term health of Pokemon Go, right? And they probably, and so when Niantic says here, this is entirely a Pokemon Go decision, to me, they're not saying this is a Niantic decision. They're saying that this is a Pokemon and Niantic decision.
Yes.
Yeah. They use the word leadership too, which I think lends to that as well.
So I think probably Niantic wanted to increase remote raid passes, and what I got from the call that we had a couple days ago before they announced this, because we sat down with Niantic a day before they announced this, what I got from that call, because you have to read a lot between the lines when Niantic says things, was that we proved to the Pokemon Company that increasing remote raid passes and turning on shadow raids and turning on Dynamax is not going to ruin the in-person communities that we built over the last 3 years. We have the data to prove that increasing this is not going to ruin that long-term vision that we had to panic fix after COVID.
Right.
But I don't know, if people want to be jaded and be like, it's only because of Scopley, I don't know if you're going to be able to convince them. Like, that sale hasn't gone through. Like, what in writing? What would, like, do you think Scopley out of $3.5 million was like a small line? They were like, and make sure to double the remote raid passes.
But it's like in saying that's like to what end though anyway? Like, okay, great. You have an opinion about that. That doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And also the sale is already like ongoing. Like Scopley isn't going to pull back the sale because they didn't double remote raid passes like after it had already been going through. The sale is already going through.
Like the
Pokemon
Prince
Go
of Saudi
need,
Arabia wants shadow raids to be remote raidable.
They don't need to
the meme is alive.
They don't need to market themselves to Scopley anymore. It's already happening.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's not
yeah,
like they already made the deal. Like it would make more sense if this happened a couple months before the Scopley deal came on, was on the table, but it's already happened. So it doesn't really matter if it's for Scopley or not anyway, because that deal is already going
maybe you could
forward.
argue that like they're pinching pennies for John Hankey before the
Yeah, like
sale
let's
goes through.
get as much as we can out of this in the last like couple of weeks or months before it's gone.
We would have seen Rayquaza.
They drop all
exactly.
the big ones.
Yeah, if they were really
Mewtwo,
pinching
Rayquaza.
pennies, we would have seen Mewtwo.
Yeah, all the hits. They just run through all the hits before
greatest
selling it
hits
off.
event for a month.
That would be so funny. Oh man.
All right. We got an extra long free episode this week. A couple housekeeping things. One is we switched. I switched the back end podcast provider. What that means is the RSS feed is different, but what that actually means is nothing. So if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have no clue that the RSS feed changed. So that's fine. That's perfect. If you were curious and had to like figure out where your podcast was going, that shouldn't have happened. But if it did happen, and you made it to the end of the episode, any issue you had was because I moved feeds on Friday night. And I think everything went smoothly. I tested my own Spotify, my own Pocket Cast, my own Overcast, my own Neurocast. The podcast showed up in all 4 of those after the move just fine. So hopefully you didn't have any technical issues. Why we changed platforms was for a better ad experience. So if I am not reading the ad, that means I don't know what the ad is. You'd have to tell me, because the ads are designed for where you are. So if you got an ad for Vegemite, you're probably in Australia, and I don't know that you got an ad for Vegemite because the ads are unique to your listening behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm not reading the ad, I don't know what ads you're getting. I do try to block political ads and religious ads, and there's a filter for me to block ads. So I don't want you guys to listen to, the Democratic Party or the Libertarian Party or the Republican. I don't want you to listen to any party. You can listen to the Pokemon GO party. I don't want you to listen to the political parties. So if there is an ad that seems weird, no, I don't have control of it, but you can always message me and I can look into it because I don't want anyone listening to weird ads. If you get an ad for McDonald's, yeah, sure, fine. You're probably American. So it's for a better ad experience. But if you don't want to listen to the ads and you want to listen to about 20 to 25 more minutes of the 3 of us talking, stay after the credits on the premium feed, which is ad-free and bonus content. And you'll get more stuff. So you can go over to patreon.com/PKMNcast to sign up. If you're in Apple Podcasts, you can hit the little premium feed button. I think it's $5 a month there. Actually, I don't know. I should know that. It should be $5. You can do a free trial on both if you want to try out the premium feed. But both those ways support the show, gets rid of all the ads, gets you longer episodes. So if you're not on the premium feed, thank you for listening. Thank you for making it to the end. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Bobby. If you are on the premium feed, there'll be more after the credits. So thank you for being a premium member. This has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast, and we are
super effective.
Super remotely effective.
Oh.
I couldn't think of anything.